Today, we are diving into a legal trial from the ancient world that is, well, it's unlike anything you've probably heard of. Imagine a courtroom with no witnesses, no evidence, and where the verdict comes directly from a divine curse. We're going to unpack the biblical law of jealousies, also known as the trial of the bitter water. It's a really incredible window into how an ancient culture tried to solve a crime that was, by its very nature, unprovable. Okay, so just picture this. A trial where there's literally no physical evidence. There are no witnesses to call to the stand. The guilt or the innocence of the person accused all comes down to a single mysterious potion. That is exactly the ritual we are exploring today. So, where did this whole thing even begin? Well, what's so fascinating is that it didn't start with a crime. It started with a feeling. The entire elaborate process was kicked off by what the text calls a spirit of jealousy that came over a husband. And you really have to let this sink in, because this is the crucial starting point. This whole public ordeal wasn't triggered because someone saw something. No, the law could be put into motion simply because the husband felt suspicious. It didn't matter if his wife was actually guilty or not. His internal feeling, all by itself, was enough to set these powerful, sacred wheels in motion. And this spirit of jealousy, it wasn't something to be sorted out at home. Nope. The husband was required to bring his wife directly to the priest, right there at the main place of worship. And just like that, what started as a personal suspicion explodes into a formal, public, and deeply religious ceremony. So once they're standing there before the priest, you might think the first step is an interrogation, right? But it's not. It's an offering. And this was no ordinary sacrifice, asking for forgiveness. Oh no, this was designed for a much more pointed purpose, to bring a potential hidden sin right out into the open. The text actually calls it an offering of memorial, bringing iniquity to remembrance. I mean, think about that phrasing. Its job wasn't to forgive a sin, but to force a hidden one out into the open, right there before God. It was all about setting the stage for a divine revelation. And even the ingredients themselves tell a story. The offering was just simple barley meal, which was often considered food for animals or the very poor. And you'll notice what's missing. There's no oil and there's no frankincense. Those are the things you typically add to make an offering pleasing. The fact that they're left out here really underlines the grim, serious nature of the whole situation. So with that stark offering made, the ritual now turns to its absolute centerpiece. This mysterious mixture the priest prepares, which is known as the bitter water that brings a curse. Now, making this water wasn't a simple thing. It was a precise, methodical process. Every single ingredient, every step was packed with deep symbolic meaning. So here's the recipe, if you will. First, the priest takes holy water and puts it in a simple clay pot. Then he adds dust from the floor of the tabernacle itself, the absolute holiest ground there was. And then comes the really wild part. He writes the words of the curse down on a scroll, and then he literally washes the ink off the page and into the water. The words of the curse itself become an ingredient. But before she takes a single sip, the priest makes the woman take a formal oath. He spells out the two possible outcomes, crystal clear. If you're innocent, he says, this water will do nothing. But if you're guilty, you are now verbally, formally placing yourself under the very curse you're about to drink. And the language of that curse was incredibly graphic and direct. It called on God to cause a very specific physical problem, a rotting thigh and a swelling belly. Now, historians can debate what exactly that means from a medical perspective, but the intent, it was perfectly clear. If she was guilty, she would become a visible walking symbol of that verdict for everyone to see. Okay, so the stage is completely set. The offering's been made, the water's been mixed, the oath has been sworn. The only thing left now is the divine verdict itself. So the priest takes the offering from the woman's hands, he presents it at the altar, and then he gives her the water to drink. This is it. This is the irreversible climax of the entire ritual, the point of no return. The outcome was totally binary, and in their minds, it was supernatural. If she was guilty, the curse would physically take effect in her body. But if she was innocent, not only was she totally unharmed, but the law actually promises a specific blessing, that she would conceive seed. That's a powerful sign of divine vindication and future fertility. And this final verse really hammers it home. This wasn't just some forgotten story or a one-off event. No, this was codified. This was the law of jealousies, a formal, repeatable procedure for whenever this specific kind of suspicion came up in the community.
This whole ritual, from that first flicker of a husband's suspicion all the way to a divine verdict, it really leaves us with a much bigger question. In cases where there are just no witnesses and zero evidence, how have cultures throughout all of human history tried to find justice and certainty? This ancient trial by ordeal gives us one striking and, let's be honest, deeply complex answer.